In sports news, Africa's women's champions, the Super Falcons, will begin the defense of their title at the 2016 African Cup of Nations against Mali in a Group B opener on November 20th. The Super Falcons were this evening drawn in a tight Group B that also includes Ghana and Kenya. Hosts Cameroon will play in Group A alongside Egypt, South Africa and Zimbabwe in the 8th Nation Tournament starting on November 19th, 2016. The Super Falcons are the most successful team in the history of the competition, having won the crown 9 times. In the Nigeria Professional Football League, Enugu Rangers this evening reclaimed the lead at the top of the league table following a 2-0 defeat of Sunshine Stars of Akure in a matchday 36 fixture. Rangers are now top of the table with 57 points, 1 point above Rivers United, who lost by a lone goal to host Wiki Tourists. The Lagos-based team are now officially relegated to the lower division following a 1-0 loss to Plateau United. Warri Wolves beat Shooting Stars by a lone goal to move 16th on the log. In other matches decided this evening, Abia Warriors beat Nasarawa United 2-1, while Lobi Stars also beat FC Fanyuba by same scoreline. Outside our shores, Manchester United manager Jose Mourinho has criticised referee Michael Olivier as Watford hand the Portuguese his worst run as a manager in a decade. The host dealt the Red Devils a third successive defeat in 8 days with a deserved 3-1 English Premier League win earlier today that left Mourinho raging at a rare run of failure. Marin Cilic this evening defeated Richard Gasquet of France 6-3, 6-2, 7-5 to put Croatia into the final of the Davis Cup. The first 2 sets in front of a partisan crowd in Zadar took Cilic just 39 minutes each. Gasquet rallied in the third, pushing the set to 55 minutes, but never looked like winning the match. In the doubles, Cilic and Ivan Dodig beat the world's top-ranked pair, Nicolas Mahut and Pierre Hubert. Gasquet and Cilic both won their previous singles matches.
Game second set. Croatia 6-2.
Away from sports news, Governor of the state of New York, Mr. Andrew Cuomo, has described the recent bombing of Manhattan as an act of terror. However, he says there's no link being made to international terror groups. Mr. Cuomo said significant damage had been caused and fortunately there were no fatalities. At least 29 people did sustain injuries during Saturday night's blast in the city. In the meantime, about 1,000 extra security personnel are being deployed to transport hubs. A second device, a pressure cooker attached to wiring and a mobile phone have been found 4 blocks from the site of the explosion in the Chelsea district. They've been removed safely. Syria's ambassador to the UN, Bashar Jafar, says U.S. airstrikes on Syrian forces threatens to sink the already fragile ceasefire in his country. This comes as the Russian authorities concur. Russia says at least 62 Syrian troops were killed in the Deir al-Zur strikes on Saturday. The U.S. has expressed regret for the unintentional loss of life.
Hours after U.S.-led coalition airstrikes killed dozens of Syrian troops in eastern Syria on Saturday, U.S. and Russian ambassadors to the United Nations addressed a news conference at an Emergency Security Council meeting called by Russia. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Samantha Power admits to the accidental strikes, which were meant for ISIS targets, but criticizes Russia's handling of the situation.
We are still gathering information at this time, but we have been able to confirm that earlier today the United States struck what we believe to be an ISIL target. Now, of all times, Russia calls the entire UN Security Council to convene urgently so that it can stand up here and express outrage. Imagine how often this council would be meeting if we were to gather every time the regime or Russia struck a hospital, or a school, or a breadline.
According to the United States military, the coalition stopped the attacks in northeast Syria after Russia informed it that Syrian military personnel and vehicles may have been hit. But Moscow describes the strikes as evidence that the United States is helping the jihadist militants.
It is quite significant and frankly suspicious that the United States chose to conduct this particular airstrike at this time. Why would all of a sudden the United States choose to help the Syrian armed forces defending Deir ez-Zor? After all, they did nothing when ISIL was advancing on Palmyra. ISIL made a 100-mile march without being attacked by the coalition. All of a sudden, the United States decides to come to the assistance of the Syrian armed forces defending Deir ez-Zor. It is quite significant, and I would suggest not accidental, that this happened just 2 days before the arrangements, Russian-American arrangement, were supposed to come into force.
Russia insists the strikes threatened to undermine the ceasefire in Syria, brokered by Russia, which has been aiding Syria's President Bashar al-Assad in the civil war.
And the main news again. President Muhammadu Buhari will tomorrow highlight the plight of over 9 million residents of the Lake Chad Basin before world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly. President Buhari, who is one of the 5 speakers penciled down to address the plenary of the 71st session, will also sign the Paris Agreement on climate change. Also today, the Nigerian Air Force released the video of its bombardment of Boko Haram strongholds in northern Borno State, which left many casualties in the terrorist camp. And officials in New York have described a bomb blast in the city as a terrorist act, although the motive behind the attack is unclear, while no link has been established with any global group. Thanks for watching the news at 10 tonight. I am Amarachi Ubani. Good night.
This is Channels Television, celebrating 21 years of professional broadcasting.